Okay, Raleigh, if you've been following us for a while, you would know that I'm a massive sports fan, and Caroline and I are huge UNC Tar Heel fans since we first moved to Raleigh in 2004. And super excited today to have Marcus Ginyard with us on the podcast, former UNC men's basketball captain and member of their 09 national championship winning team. He's also played professionally in Europe and the Middle East for over 10 years and is now with a company here in Raleigh. Marcus, super grateful. Awesome to meet you and grateful for you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
We've actually jumped over the fires in 2009 on Franklin Street. Thanks to you. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was an American bucket list moment for us.
It was, totally. Like we grew up watching stuff like that in the movies from Australia and, you know, sporting shows and stuff like that. And yeah, we're at Hams, which I believe is not there anymore.
Not there anymore.
Which I can't believe because it was always packed.
And it's been like 3 or 4 things since.
Yeah.
Since then,
yeah. But I always love that shot, like a few minutes before the end of a game. Franklin Street is just dead, empty. And then 5 minutes later, just a sea of people, like up light poles, just everywhere, man. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, we made our way to the middle and we're jumping fire. Like I still can't believe it. Jumping fire. I'm like, what am I doing? We're in our mid-30s. Like
maybe we can find you in that picture.
Somewhere there.
I did buy one. I was like, that's me just there. No, that was a ton of fun.
That was. Oh my gosh, what an experience. So yeah, thank you for that. I can only imagine what it must have been like for you as a player, being on the other side and, you know, experiencing that world. So we're very excited to talk to you about that and what the great things that you're doing now too, that you've returned back to the USA.
Awesome.
Yeah, you won't remember this, but in 2008, I guess it was, we actually met you at a UNC Fans Day, and you were kind enough to give our now 14-year-old daughter, who was 2 at the time, her autograph.
Yeah,
and, let me show you this photo.
Downloaded it?
Yeah, I got proof. That's not our daughter. We're standing in line waiting to see you. But does that guy look familiar?
Yeah, looks like me.
And that's our daughter at 2.
Yeah.
And we'll put these photos in the show notes, guys, so you can see them.
I met
awesome.
Look at she's so
Ty Lawson and Dion Thompson.
Yeah, Dion Thompson. I just texted him this morning.
Oh, really?
On the way here, yeah.
Is he still around somewhere?
Yeah, he's actually in Germany right now. He just finished his season in Spain, and he's doing a little bit of traveling before he comes home. So.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. And that's her two awesome in the crowd. That's awesome. But yeah, good memories, man. I remember that day. I was trying to get her to shoot a free throw on the Dean Dome, but there's no balls around.
That's all right. We'll get you back down there soon. No problem.
Yeah. So you finished up at Carolina in 2010, and you've done a lot since, but does it feel like yesterday, like you were there, or does it feel like another lifetime ago?
No, sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. It kind of goes back and forth, just depending on the memories. But it has been quite some time, over a decade. So, like I said, that there are times where it feels like, man, like where did time go? Yeah. And there's sometimes I just don't quite remember things because it feels like so long ago. So, just depends.
Yeah, it's so funny. I wrote about this recently. We were speaking before we jumped on that we went to London, and we have a travel blog. So I was writing on there. I lived in London when I was 21, and so that was like 25 years ago. And it was so weird to me when we returned. Yeah, owning it. Own it. But it was so weird to me returning to London, how it felt like I was just there yesterday in some moments, but then other moments I couldn't remember the address of where I lived or the name of the pub that I worked at. So it's this kind of weird time thing where it feels like yesterday in one moment, but the next it's like forever ago.
Well, I think that just kind of speaks to this phenomena of time.
Yeah.
Like we've created such a idea of what time is, but I think that it just kind of goes to show that we don't quite understand it. What is time?
Yeah, I know. I love like pushing the boundaries of that and trying to explore that concept.
Going down the rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit hole. A fun one.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but the older I get, each year gets quicker and quicker. It's crazy. It used to feel like such a long time a year, but now no.
Yeah.
So tell us, we'd love to hear about some of your early life. Growing up, where you went to high school, when you started playing basketball. I'm sure the listeners would be interested to hear a bit of your background.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Northern Virginia, in a small town called Dale City, Virginia, Woodbridge, Virginia. But as I got to 12, 13, I moved up to Alexandria, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. Most folks know it very well because of Remember the Titans. That was my local high school, T.C. Williams. I did not attend T.C. Williams, but that was my public high school. So I grew up in Alexandria, but was playing basketball from a very early age, probably 4.5, 5 years old. I was already playing on a team at the Boys and Girls Club.
Wow.
Was a huge fan of my brother, still am, my older brother growing up. And, he was playing a ton of sports and he played basketball. And that's really how I got started playing basketball. My father played baseball growing up. My mom played basketball growing up. So we were definitely a sports family.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we, let go of all our energy, out on the sports fields and on the courts. And so grew up playing basketball and, played a bunch of other sports as well. But by the time I got to high school, I really knew that basketball was the only thing that I wanted to do. So I attended Bishop Dennis J. O'Connell High School in Arlington, Virginia. You may have heard of the legendary high school basketball coach Morgan Wooten. His son was my coach at Bishop O'Connell, so chose to go to O'Connell to kind of start a new program. I mean, they had a basketball program for a while that was for a long time kind of like the laughing stock of the Washington Catholic Association, or Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, excuse me. But decided to go there and kind of start something new and try to build a program there. And we were super successful, winning a Catholic League championship and a couple state championships, and was really lucky enough to get recruited at a lot of the bigger schools, and even decided at a very young age, just after my sophomore year, to attend the University of North Carolina. Grew up running all over the place, playing AAU ball and playing basketball basically everywhere you could. And I'm very grateful for that because, that really set me up to have the opportunity to get down here to North Carolina.
So it was your sophomore year, that's grade 10, is that correct?
Correct.
So that's when you knew you were going to Carolina? Or is that
I
when
committed to come to the University of North Carolina after my 10th grade year. And so in the world of recruiting, at least back in 2002, 3, these rules are changing all the time now, but back at that time, colleges could not contact you until you were a junior in high school.
Right.
And so that's kind of when the official recruiting process started. Now, before that time, if you as the athlete, the student athlete, if you reached out to the school, if you initiated contact, if you came on campus, then you could talk to the coaching staff and talk to the university. But they couldn't come out and initiate the contact before you were a junior. So considering I was a highly, scouted player, even as a sophomore, a freshman and a sophomore, they're able to send you like one piece of paper, one little questionnaire or something like that for you to fill out so that they can kind of keep track of you. Things are much different now. Now they can just keep track of you on, I don't know, Instagram.
TikTok.
Monitor you 24/7.
Right. And so I knew kind of, the schools that I, was super interested in. And so I just reached out to those schools and took unofficial visits to those schools and got to talk to those coaches and those universities. And I was able to make my decision early.
And what was it about Carolina that...
Yeah.
Did you grow up a UNC fan or follow the ACC?
I followed the ACC big time. So when I was growing up, obviously Maryland was still in the ACC. And for me, that's what really drew me into ACC basketball is watching all the battles at the University of Maryland. So getting to see them play and what I thought of and still do think, the ACC is one of the best and kind of, strongest conferences out there. And so that really just fed my love for the game of basketball. And as I was coming through middle school, I saw Joseph Forte, who came from DeMatha, also in our conference. And I saw him go to University of North Carolina. And then that really made it seem like, I could see something tangible. Hey, this guy from the same conference just went to North Carolina, a Maryland guy, and he's at North Carolina. And so that really kind of made the connection for me. But I mean, I have a third grade picture of me in like all Carolina gear.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Love it.
Definitely. From a young age, I definitely had an affinity for North Carolina. But, as I got older, definitely wanted to kind of make sure I opened it up, checked out all the schools, and, that seemed like a good fit for me. Make a decision, with an open mind, but it still ended up back in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your
sure no
brother,
regrets.
None at all. Best decision of my life, for sure.
Yeah. Older brother? Is it few
Older
years?
brother, yeah.
How many?
5.5 years older.
Did you guys used to go at it in the driveway and stuff? Or
we
like
actually
down
used to
there?
go at it in the house. We used to
both competitive, no doubt.
very, very much so. I mean, he was an athlete as well. Played basketball in college for a year and a half. But yeah, we had a rule that we weren't supposed to play ball in the house. Of course, we didn't listen to that. So we broke almost everything in the house.
And did I read that he was an assistant coach on your
He was
high school
on
team?
my high school team. So he coached me for 2 years in high school.
Cool.
Which was an incredible experience to have somebody that I looked up to, and one that was also somebody able to kind of mold and shape me as a human being and as a player, and kind of gave me that familiar connection on the sideline, and I love Coach Wooten, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity that he gave me and what he taught me as a player and a person as well. But there's something special about having a family member on the sideline.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about what it was actually like playing for UNC, going to college there, and the impact of Roy Williams, because I'm sure he's been a great influence on your life.
Incredible impact on my life. We'll even start 6 months ago, talking about the influence of Coach Williams. I remember sitting at practice just over 6 months ago now, and talking to Coach Williams about where I was going to go to work, and the decision about choosing this firm over this firm and this city over this city, and is this the right choice? And I won't go into too many details, but he was incredibly supportive, helpful, and helping me make that decision. And so even as a 34-year-old, 15 years, or I don't know however many years after I started to play for him, I'm still going to him for advice. He's still helping me. He's still there, in our lives. And so when I say it was the best decision of my life, it's not just something that gets thrown out there like another little phrase. These are relationships and bonds that really mean a lot to us in the Carolina family. And so we're still super, super close. All my teammates that are guys that I didn't play with, that I still kind of think of as teammates and brothers. And so it really was a special time for me to play at Carolina, and really the best days of my life. You're a college student, you don't have a ton of things to worry about. Going to class and working hard on the basketball court. And so, we were able to experience a lot of amazing things. We got to travel a ton. Obviously as an 18, 19-year-old playing on national television is super cool. And, getting to come back home to your dorm room after a game and flip on the TV, and there you guys are running up and down the court.
Wow, that's crazy.
Just getting to meet, just like any other college experience as well. You're getting to meet friends that you're going to grow up with, and and still have relationships with after college, and then add that to this incredible basketball experience. There's a handful of schools that I think that can even have the conversation about having a basketball experience like at Carolina.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that sounds like my dream life. Like I say it all the time. I wish I went to college in the US or played a sport and went to college in the US.
There's something pretty special about the college experience here in America. You take sports out of it. Well, even if you're not an athlete, right? Obviously sports in college in the US is such a big deal, right? You look at American football and basketball and baseball and all these, major sports in college. But I think that just the college experience in the U.S., I think people look at it and they really kind of say, wow, man, I want to do that.
So, totally.
Pretty cool.
Well, more people in America will go to a college game than a professional game in Australia. Like, it's just insane. We see the crowds that show up.
It's incredible.
Even when you leave college, like, they always goes back and support the alma mater.
Exactly.
Like, they're like devout
it's
fans.
It's a pretty special thing. To go back 20, 30 years later and still be probably even crazier of a fan than when they were in school.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just want to say on Roy, like we watch him on TV on the sidelines, obviously, and at press conferences and dancing in the locker room after a big win. But he just seemed like obviously a great coach. Just seems like a fun guy, someone you'd like to sit down and have a beer with or play golf with.
Yeah,
like
play golf.
just a
There you
dude.
go. That's
it.
I heard he loves his
there.
golf.
Play some golf.
Is that what he's doing right now?
Yeah,
like
probably right now he's probably playing
on the
golf.
tee.
But Coach Williams, first and foremost, is just an amazing person, and it's really hard to think of anything other than the absolute best things to say about Coach Williams. And I mean, he played such an important role in so many people's lives, even fans that never met him, right? Like he has this aura and this kind of bigger than life kind of energy to him. But at the same time, one of the most humble and down to earth people you'll ever meet. I just heard a story about Coach Williams at a country club in I want to say in Charleston. And I heard that he was out, he went super early, bought a whole bunch of breakfast sandwiches, and was like out on the golf course handing them out to people who were working on the golf course.
Oh, awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
So
Great story. Yeah.
When you think about some other head coaches out there, we don't need to name names, but
We can.
I don't know them.
Yeah.
So I can't, I can't speak to that, but
Yeah.
it just seems more fitting for a guy like Coach Williams to hear a story like that, than some of the other folks that you see out there on TV. And again, not to say that those guys aren't great folks too, but I mean, he really is like the myth of Roy Williams, and at the same time, just like a regular guy.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, love it.
How, when you're just describing your college experience, seems like there was a lot for you to balance and a lot of pressure that must have been upon you, managing the school side of things, the game side of things, the pressure of trying to win championships and things. How did you balance all of that? How did you deal with all of that? Because you're only quite young, so, you don't sort of have the experienced wisdom there. Did they help you develop strategies, tools? Share some of that.
I mean, I think that the university was super helpful, the program and the university, the athletic department, let's say. I was a part of a leadership program in the athletic department that also kind of helped build some of those skills. One just as an individual first, but as a leader second. And, I think that those, let's call them seminars, and that program was super helpful for me. But at the same time, I think that at that age, you're kind of developing skills without even knowing it, right?
Yeah.
And so looking back at it now, I can say, wow, we did an incredible job of, balancing our schedule, to your point, like handling expectations and the pressure to succeed and all these things. But I don't know, at the time, you're just like so caught up in it that, you're just trying to do the best you can. And I guess that was something that Coach Williams also kind of helped us to get through, is really creating a system that set us up for success as long as we were, willing to buy in and just give it our best effort, right? And so being at class on time, being in the front row of class, coming to practice 15, 20, 30 minutes early, staying after practice, like all these things that we would hear from them. And really, Coach Williams told us straight up, listen to what we tell you and you'll be successful.
Yeah.
He's been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Just listen to us. And that's really what we did, right? Without even kind of understanding all the things that went into it. And so we knew that, for example, to prepare for a game, right? Like we knew that because Coach told us, right? Do what I ask. Know these 3 or 4 players at your position, right? Know what their defense is going to likely do, and those are things that we're practicing throughout the week. So here we are, like learning about the importance of preparation without ever sitting down and saying, hey, it's important that we prepare, right? But like just doing all of those things is kind of subconsciously showing you, well, man, we just spent 2.5 hours talking about this team and what they're going to do. And so in the back of your mind, you're starting to understand that there needs to be work done before you execute a plan, right? And so like things that we may not have just thought about so kind of in the front of our mind and consciously, but we're really getting hammered home to us at a young age. And I think that now as an adult, an older adult, looking back, it's like, yeah, we were really kind of getting some big time foundational blocks for, making sure that we can be successful off the court and into our adult life as well.
And I'm sure that has made, I don't know if I could say your adult life easier, but more manageable.
More manageable, yeah, more manageable. That's certainly one thing I did not understand in college, is that things are going to get more and more complicated.
Yeah, we find that too. But the older we get, the bigger the problems and the dramas.
But again, those are the same kind of foundational blocks that I think are going to continue to be super important no matter where you are in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all that preparation stuff. Like most sports in Australia just like played on a weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday. Like over here, the basketball and the hockey and the baseball is just so many games.
All the time. Yeah.
But I don't know who said this quote, but it was like winning starts on Monday. So it's not just the 80 minutes game time on the weekend. It's all the preparation and the repetitive skills practice and the watching film and all that sort of stuff. So,
well, Craig used to play professional rugby league in Australia, so he has that side too, where he was, went through the coaches, the discipline, the habit forming, the foundation.
Yeah, that was another lifetime. I'm talking early 90s. Straight out of high school.
So we didn't league in college here. You could have come and
they have
done
rugby union, I think, but not professionally. But we went straight from high school to being a professional player. So we didn't have the college transition and no degree behind me, and so that's a bit silly when I think about all that. Naively thinking, like you got like a 10-year lifespan in sport, like you're just going to play for the rest of your life. No,
I think it's an interesting setup though. How a lot of foreign countries do that, right? Like not many. I think really the U.S. is kind of the only one that kind of have this program of go to school and play high level sports at the same time. I like the idea of having the option to go and be a pro, straight out of high school.
From high school. That was
but I do agree that the
LeBron style.
Yeah, something like that. And a lot of other guys too, but there's obviously pros and cons to each side. But
yeah, I guess that it would be difficult with the money on offer, and you can always go back to school and get a degree, but you can't always get that big check as an 18-year-old. I guess. Right. So it's tough.
And then and then you start to go down. Talking about rabbit holes earlier, and then you start to go down the rabbit hole of, is our college education worth the time, worth the money for a lot of people that have to pay, and
it's not cheap.
That's for the next podcast.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking to a former school teacher here, so she loves talking all things education. But another time.
I don't know if I love it, but
no,
I totally understand the challenges of it, and it's a system that needs to evolve, but it's not really happening.
So, just curious, what were the other schools in the mix you're thinking of?
Yeah.
And recruiting, is it like you just get a phone call from Roy, or does he, like you hear he comes and sits on your couch and talks to your parents in your house?
Right. So again, remember I committed super early. So all of those things weren't possible. He wasn't able to come to my house and visit. He wasn't able to call me.
Sure. Yeah.
So we had to go to campus to visit with him. But I went to Notre Dame. I believe that was the first school that I visited. Then I went to Wake Forest, Duke, and Carolina.
Interesting.
So
I kept an open mind. Kept an open mind.
Yeah.
It just made me think of something.
So glad you went.
Sorry to sidetrack here, but I read when you were 13 or something, you played for the DC Blue Devils.
I did.
The Blue Devils, Marcus. What's going on there?
This is well known. Okay, so play for the Blue Devils. Yes. What can I do about that, right? But I will say there was a time where I went to Notre Dame. I came back from Notre Dame with all Notre Dame gear. I could swear to anybody that I was going to go to Notre Dame. Went to Wake Forest. Didn't feel the same about Wake Forest, but super excited. I'm 15 years old.
Yeah, totally.
Gosh.
I'm like,
that's crazy.
That's your dream, just there. Yeah.
And then I go to Duke, and I'm like, man. I'm walking around high school now with Duke shorts on. I'm like, man, maybe this is it,
Yeah, had all the gear.
But to be fair, when Coach Williams told me that they had a scholarship, and they were offering me a scholarship, it felt so much different than all those other schools, right? Like I had the initial excitement of like, oh man, I got an opportunity to play at this school, great. But then when Coach said that to me, it was just like less exciting, and it was more like relief and settling, because like that's where I knew I needed to be, right? Like, so once I got that offer, I immediately got on the phone with the other coaches and we're like, listen, no need to continue this it's over. I'm going to go to Carolina.
Yeah.
It sounds like you really tuned into your intuition then. Like
Absolutely.
you just had the feeling.
Absolutely. And I think even when I look back at that second or third grade picture, I can't remember. I'll try to find it. Where, I mean, my brother had gone to Dean Smith's basketball camp, so I had his basketball shorts from Carolina basketball camp. I had the Carolina basketball T-shirt. Then I had like the starter outfit, the starter sweatsuit, pants, hoodie, and then had the big starter jacket too. So like I had the whole Carolina get up. So like I can't tell you exactly when it started, but like I loved Carolina for a long time.
And how influential were your parents in your decision, or they just left it up to you?
Left it up to me.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that must be difficult. Like,
I can imagine.
For parents not to get involved in your kid just to go and do academic studies, let alone
I got
scholarship.
I got to really applaud my parents. They were the most supportive that any parents could be. They just wanted to put me in a position where the best things could happen to me, and they did, from moving me to different schools and kind of putting me in different social circles and different organizations. I mean, like I was like a 9 or 10-year-old in like a public speaking organization out, like giving speeches and stuff, and so like the things incredible. that they had the foresight to really try to set me up and position me to have an opportunity to be a basketball player that would get a scholarship and somebody who was, articulate and well-spoken and all the things, even to this day that are still a huge part of my success. And so just want to take my hat off to them and say thank you to them, because I mean, they sacrificed a ton for my brother and for me.
Yeah.
For us to have things and to be able to experience things that they didn't have the chance to do. So super, super grateful to have parents like that didn't push you to go anywhere, but really just kind of uplifted us and really motivated us and supported us to do what we wanted to do and what was going to make us happy.
And I'm sure that allowed you that space to have the confidence to trust in your intuition.
Yeah.
And I love talking about this with people, because I think a lot of people go through life, they don't realize their intuition can be a great guide, and they're always conflicted and confused and can't make decisions, where if you just kind of settle into that space of, well, what's my gut telling me? Is that something you've taken throughout your life? You've used your intuition well?
I certainly try to, I certainly try to. I actually remember just a couple of years ago in France, was doing a bit of meditation around the moon cycles and kind of setting some intentions. And one of the things that I thought about a couple of years ago was, again, getting back to like being focused in and trusting in, those gut feelings, those instincts. And it's funny that we kind of came around to this, because that's really what the conversation was like between Coach Williams and I when I was deciding where I wanted to work. The first question that he asked was, am I going to mess it up? Are you going to mess it up? I said, no, that's certainly not my intention. I said, I don't think I'm going to be messing this situation up, right? And he's like, yeah, exactly. And now think about all the other major decisions that you made in your life. How do you think you did? Right? And to your point, right? Like, where's your gut telling you? Like, think about what you've done to make all the other major decisions and look at this decision the exact same way, right? And so it's interesting that he gave me that advice, because I literally made the decision to work with medalists almost the same way that I made the decision to go play for Coach Williams, be a part of an organization that had a high level of credibility and integrity and character. A group of folks that were going to be super involved and intentional with spending time and helping me develop, not only in my role in the company, but, as a man outside of that as well. A group that was ambitious, that wanted to win a championship, let's say, wanted to kind of continue to make steps, in the right direction. And so it's really interesting how that all came together. But yes, to your point, I think it's very important to follow your gut, your instincts, or whatever, you want to call it. But I think that there's a very strong energy in that, and a very, very powerful energy that a lot of times we find ourselves ignoring for whatever reason. I mean, anybody listening is going to have one of those moments where, I mean, whether it was 10 minutes before or 3 years before, you were like, man, I knew that was where I was supposed to be, or this was going to happen, or whatever it may be. So, but it's tough. I don't know, for whatever reason, we've kind of, we've been conditioned and starting to think of why we shouldn't listen to that voice or that feeling. But I think it's really important to have that kind of front of mind.
Yeah, love it. And your parents are military background, correct?
Yeah,
so,
my dad was in the Marines and my mom was in the Air Force.
So that obviously comes with, the teaching of, self-discipline, commitment, personal development side of things. So obviously they instilled that in you as well.
Absolutely.
Besides, coach.
I like telling this story. It makes me sound a little crazy, but
we like crazy.
So, I mean, obviously making your bed is like these are just one thing you don't leave your room without making your bed. Bed is just literally getting up in the morning, walking through your bedroom door. Like, that's one thing that definitely has had to have happened already, right? Before you even leave your bedroom. And so it's interesting. You talked about discipline, but to this day, as a 35-year-old man, I still make my bed in hotel rooms.
Yeah, in hotel rooms.
Because of this,
because of that.
Consistent habits that you've formed, like how you start the day is important. Wow.
My bed.
That's amazing.
Love that. I've heard from many motivational speakers and coaches, that's one tip they always recommend, is to make your bed. And I've been very diligent in doing that for years, except this morning I didn't. And I walked away and I was like, oh my God, the bed is not made. The bed is not made. And I was stressed, but I had to let it go.
But not in hotel rooms.
I don't think I've
ever heard that. That's amazing.
I love it. To be very honest and fair, I don't make it as nice as they do.
They probably walk in and they're like, did anyone even stay here? Like,
they made the bed.
I gotta recheck the room schedule. No,
but I do like to
I'm going to try that. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I love it, man.
See how
awesome.
I feel after it. Yeah.
I also I read another story about your mum when you were a kid and you didn't play very well in a particular game and you were driving past a water park and she pulled up outside this water park and there was a basketball court right there and she had you shooting hoops for like 30 minutes instead of going into the water park or an hour. Like just giving you that push and nudge and
I still remember that court. I swear I can still see it. Chain nets out there. Yeah, we went out there and had like a little workout out there. And again, that was just one of those moments, right, where you don't necessarily know what you're learning and what's kind of getting hammered home at that time. But, just knowing that when you don't get the result that you want, you got to put some extra input in there, or change the input. And so, just from a young age, just learning that hard work, just how important that is and just knowing that gives you a chance.
Yeah.
It just gives you a chance.
No, that's awesome. I love those stories. Like,
it's not guaranteed, but it gives you a chance.
Like people, they obviously see their favorite players play on TV and stuff and like the 80 minutes and the thing, like how awesome or how lucky they could be, but they don't know the backstory, like the hours and hours and the years and years and years that went into practice and the discipline and the
mental,
the 4 a.m. starts or the midnight finishes and just everything that's gone into that over a lifetime, basically, to get to where you are. So,
agreed.
Was there ever a moment that you felt like quitting, or there was just never? You were always just 100% in.
No, I never felt like quitting, but there was definitely some times where it was just, it just didn't make sense to me, right? Like I was, what am I doing? You talked about 4 a.m. starts. My mom again, man, she was pretty tough.
She's a military mom.
But we used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and drive to a military base close to where I went to school. And we would lift weights and shoot.
How old were you?
School. This was like probably my freshman year of high school, sophomore year of high school. Yeah.
Wow.
And shoot before school. Then I go to school all day, practice with my team in the afternoon, go home, do my homework, and then get up super early and do it again, right? And so we did this for quite some time, and like during, this is the fourth day of the week now. It's Thursday morning, it's 4:30, and you're like, 13 years old, like, what am I doing right now? Like, at 4 o'clock in the morning going to work out, but, again, then you start to look back at it and you say, man, well, that's kind of what it takes. You know, you want to play at a high level. You want to give yourself a chance to make a living playing
Mm-hmm.
basketball. You know, like you're not going to get there just practicing an hour and a half with your team like everybody else.
Yeah,
You're going to have to do something to separate yourself.
Yeah, totally. They're so competitive. Obviously, just playing college, learn the pro. Like so many people in America, plus guys from Europe and stuff that can play as well. Australia, we got 25 million people in our whole country and spread out over a lot of sports. So
Listen, you guys got a lot of athletes, though. You got a lot of good athletes.
we do great per capita. We always do great in the Olympics and various sports for the limited population we have. We do awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you wore the number one Tar Heel jersey and in pros too, correct?
Yeah, I've wore a bunch of different numbers in the pros.
But number one, is there, why number one? Any significant connection or?
Not that interesting of a story.
I'm number one. I'm number one.
I wore number 10. I wore number 10 for the vast majority of my youth basketball career, let's call it. And when I got to Carolina, number 10 was retired Lenny Rosenbluth. So I had to go to my next best option, which was number one.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't realize it, but Melvin Scott, who played just before me in North Carolina, he was on the 2005 national championship team. He was actually the first person to wear the number one at the University of North Carolina.
Really?
Oh, wow.
So then I came in line as the second. And now there's been, I don't know, 2 or 3 or others after me. I think we're on our 5th number one right now, if I'm not mistaken. But
so
10 was unavailable.
So other guys can, other players can wear it, unless you get retired in the rafted.
Right.
Yeah.
Like 10 was. So.
And 23, I guess.
Yes.
23. Yeah, everyone knows that number.
Others on that front row.
Yeah. That's crazy. And you're a captain of the team in your junior year or throughout your whole career?
Junior. My junior year was my first year as a captain.
How was that? Like, do you feel like you're a natural leader and enjoyed that role?
I did enjoy that role, and it was certainly a lot easier. Our teams were very successful in those first 2 years that I was a captain. The third year that I was a captain, the 2010 year after the championship, our team was not as successful. I look at that season as, I think that we experienced a certain level of success that maybe was not up to the standard of Carolina basketball, but I don't want to say that wasn't a successful season. However, it was a lot more challenging for me as a leader that year, obviously, when things aren't going that well. And to be fair, in 2008 and 2009, we certainly had, our moments that didn't go our way, but I think overall we just had a lot more positive energy behind us that made leading those teams a little bit easier. So I think that I learned the most about myself as a leader and as a person in that third year as a captain, where things weren't going so well for us.
Yeah. 2010, coming off the national championship in 2009 when all the starters left basically.
A good amount of the starters left.
And that's a difficult transition, obviously.
I'm coming off a year where I was injured. Also, it sounds kind of wimpish, but like the class that I came in with had just left, and so I'm here kind of like the only guy left from the guys that I came in with, and that was a bit of a transition as well. That was definitely kind of tough on me mentally, but we had a lot of pieces to be successful, and we just went through kind of some young growing pains with some young folks on the team, and I take a lot of that responsibility on myself, for not quite finding the way to get our team to come together the way that we needed to. But again, I feel like I learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about kind of what it really means to be a leader during that season.
Can you say something you did learn about yourself and about leadership? Talk through that experience.
Yeah, definitely. It's very easy to put your head down, and to not to give up, but just kind of to stop trying to put your energy in certain places, right? So like instead of giving a push, you just kind of watch to see how it unfolds, right? But I think that as a leader, you kind of, not always, but I think you need to have more of a pulse on on the situation and be more willing to put your mark on it, regardless of whether that leads to a good place or a bad place, right? And so I think that when we experience some of those, bad moments or tougher moments in that 2010 season, I was less eager to try to put my mark on it or try to influence things, because if it continued to go bad, then it's more my fault, let's say, So instead I was just like, well, let's just see how it works, which also isn't necessarily the best way to do it, And again, every situation is different, and I know I'm talking about this very generally, but I felt like I took a step back more times than I took 2 steps forward. And I think that when you're in that type of position, you really have to be confident, and you have to be willing to take 2 steps forward, even if that's overstepping. And for me, I think it's better as a leader to do that and understand that you went too far than to stay back and not, put that influence on, or not have that influence on your team and on the program.
It's a powerful lesson.
Yeah, you started your career with an injury in summer practice with your wrist.
Sure did,
I was reading back, and but you did end up starting the season.
It's a nice little scar from that.
Wow. And then, the 09, like you missed most of the season with it, was a foot injury,
exactly.
Correct? So obviously difficult. And then the guys went on to win the national championship, but you won an award that year for how involved you were with the team, and you became the biggest supporter, the biggest fan, and pushing the guys and stay heavily involved. And
that was another great learning opportunity, right? And a way that you can still be a leader of the team and not be on the court.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very different. But I mean, coaches, like coaches are leaders, but they're not on the court, right? And so there's still ways for you to influence your team, for you to be a great teammate, for you to be a support system for the younger guys, and even for the older guys, right? Like there's still ways for you to be a very integral part of a team's success without actually being on the court during game time.
Yeah.
And so I was very lucky to still be able to practice with the team. And I got to a point later on in the season where I was feeling very, very healthy and able to really compete with the guys in the practice setting, which obviously helped them prepare for games as well. But not being out on the court was tough. But I don't have any doubt in my mind the influence that I was able to have on my team. But, of course, I wish I could have been in my uniform and out there on the court with them.
Yeah, totally. We're not familiar with getting redshirted and stuff. Yeah. So you're able to practice with your team, but you can't compete, obviously, and that's what allowed you to have a 5th year in college.
So
the following season.
If you don't compete, and again, these rules may have changed at this point, but at that time, as long as you haven't competed in 30% of the season, you're allowed to take a red shirt. And some guys, they come in as freshmen. They know that they may not get a ton of playing time, and they'd rather just have a full year where they know they're not going to compete, where they'll get an extra year of just training with the team. They're just traveling with them, doing everything that everybody else does. They just don't get to suit up on game night and get out on the court. So you'll see most guys take it their freshman year. They'll redshirt as a freshman, and then they'll have 4 years after that to compete. But since it was an injury for me, I ended up redshirting my senior year. Yeah. And I played a couple of games trying to get back from a surgery that I had late in the summer or early in the fall. Wasn't able to do it, and so January came, and I had played 27% of the games at that point, and so we had to make a decision, like, you play 1 or 2 more games, this is going to be your last year, and you're going to have to finish it out struggling, or take a seat for the rest of the year, and you can come back the year after. So.
Yeah, and you're a versatile guy. Like, you played 4 positions, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Where did you spend most of your time, and what did you enjoy the most?
Most of my time was in the small forward position, but I just enjoyed being on the court.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to me.
I would be the same. Like, our daughter started playing this year. She's 10. Awesome. And Caroline's like, does anyone have a position? They just seem like they're running around everywhere. I said, well, they're 10-year-olds. Yeah. That's like a bee to a honey pot. They're all like, get around the ball.
So see, I came from netball. I don't know if you know netball.
No.
So I played netball back in Australia.
We'll have to show him some YouTube clips.
Yeah, you'll have to look at YouTube. But it has similarities to basketball.
Okay.
But everyone has a set position, and there's only 2 people on the court that can shoot. Wow. And so I was like, why is everyone like doing the same jobs? Because it was just like so weird to me that. But
so netball,
proper positions.
They don't have a backboard and there's no net, even though they call it netball. Interesting.
Just the rim.
Just the rim.
Yeah.
And you can't There's no dribbling. You can't run with the ball. When you catch the ball, you got to stand and pass.
Still
I think
pass.
I may have seen some pictures of this before. That's kind of interesting.
Australian women do very well. They're the best in the world.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Australia, New Zealand, South Africa is very good. England,
All right.
Bahamas, I think. But yeah, we can show you some
Let's
clips.
get a game going, man.
Yeah. Get it started over here.
Yeah, but and you also won Defensive Player of the Year. Do you enjoy defending or the offensive side of the
Yeah,
game
I mean,
and more than the other, or just happy to be on the court?
Again, happy to be on the court. The great thing about basketball is it's just so dynamic, and like you can't be on the court unless you can play both sides of the ball to some level, right?
Totally.
When you think about American football, you got guys that are specialized in their positions and on offense or defense, and and a lot of other sports as well. And so in basketball, I just think it's so awesome that, in a split second, you now are on defense.
Yeah.
And that same split second, now your team has the ball and you're trying to score. And so you really have to be very adept in both sides of things. And so I just kind of found that niche, as a defender, and I took a lot of pride in that. And so very, very lucky for my team to have, it was pretty objective. I won the defensive award per game more times than any other player.
Huh.
So there's a defensive award winner after every game. So one side of it is, yes, they voted me, but at the same time, it's hard to argue with, you look at every game. But I was also, in that 2008 season, voted to the All-ACC defensive team, which also meant a great deal to me as well. And so, it was just something that, everybody thinks about scoring.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to.
That's the highlight reel. That's like the hero of the game. But
and so I think that there's a pretty cool energy and thinking about the opposite, right? Can I be the guy that makes a guy that typically scores 25 points a night, have a terrible night and score 13 points and shoot a much worse percentage than usual, and kind of give our team a better chance to win that way.
Can you think of anybody who was some of the toughest guys to guard throughout college? Anyone come to mind?
Definitely.
That you just did not like?
Yeah,
defending?
Sean Singletary was a guy that I didn't like to guard. He played at Virginia, went on to play in the NBA for a little bit, and Tyrese Rice, a guy that I played with growing up out of Richmond, who played at Boston College, and he had a fantastic career in Europe. I feel like he was maybe even still just playing a year or two ago, but he had an incredible career over in Europe. And there's so, again, we talk about the ACC. And,
it's just competitive, the depth.
A ton of great
What
players.
about practice at UNC? Defending guys, who was tough to handle there?
You showed a picture of Ty Lawson. I didn't have to guard him as much, but there certainly were times where I did end up defending him, and he is,
quick.
One of the toughest guys. Yeah, just his speed and his agility, his ability to kind of change directions so quickly.
Yeah.
Really, everybody that I played with was pretty
difficult.
to
Yeah,
guard.
you're at that level. No one's easy at that level. No,
easy to guard. But again, iron sharpens iron, and so it was a good situation to be in, for a good environment for us to make each other better.
Yeah.
And so Europe, I was just reading before, you've lived in a lot of countries in Europe playing basketball.
Should we name them?
Well,
I wrote them down.
France, Poland. Well, Marcus can take us through all the places.
It's easier for me to start and do it in chronological order.
Yeah.
There you go.
Germany, Israel, Poland, Ukraine. Then I went back to Poland. Then I went to New York. Then I went to France. Then I went back to Poland. Macedonia, Romania, back to Poland. Oh, I missed Greece. I went to Greece back in there somewhere. Greece was in between New York and France. Macedonia, Romania, back to Poland, then France. Yeah.
Wow, you're like a real life globetrotter, literally.
And tell us about the experience? Like, how long were you in each place? Did you have a favorite?
Typically, I'd be in any of those places from August to June.
Oh, okay.
Then I'd come home for 6 to 8 weeks and then head back over to my next stop. Some of those places were a little shorter. There was one season that I split between Romania and Poland, for example. So I was in Romania for 4 months, 5 months, and in Poland for the rest of the season. I was in France 2 separate occasions. The last trip was 2 years with the same team, which is the only team that I played for more than one season. France was probably my favorite.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Germany. I really enjoyed my time in Ukraine as well, to be honest with you. But I mean, head and shoulders, the winner is definitely France.
Did you pick up any French?
I did. I actually studied French growing up, which at the time seemed kind of weird that everybody's taking Latin and Spanish.
Yeah,
and you're going to be the funny kid that wants to take French and never use it, but it actually helped out quite a bit once I played back in 2015 the first time, and then like I said, the 2019, 20, and 2021 I played in France again, and really helped me take my French to another level.
Yeah, what an amazing experience. And did you get to travel much while you were there?
I did. I don't know the exact number, and we don't have time to do it right now, but I think somewhere between 30 and 35 countries I got to travel to during those 11 years while I was in Europe. So very, very grateful and lucky to have had that opportunity as well, to continue to see the world and experience different cultures and kind of just gain a broader perspective on life. And what I now look at is, where I live now, and even when I'm living in France, what's life like in Italy? What's life like in Romania? What's life like in Greece? And then how does that change the way that you look at your current situation and what you're experiencing where you are?
Had you traveled previously before you did professional basketball, and were you exposed to different cultures before?
I was super lucky to have had the opportunity to travel, at a young age. When I was 13 with my French class, I got to travel to France. When I was 16 or 17, I got to travel to Brazil for basketball. I look at this as in a very different category, but my freshman year at Carolina, we went to the Bahamas on a basketball trip as well.
That's that preseason tournament?
Preseason tournament down there.
Yeah. Nice.
So we didn't, and the reason I say that, nothing against the Bahamas, is just that on this trip, it was, we're at the hotel.
Yeah.
Games, hotel. We didn't do a ton of, kind of looking around, but I was lucky to kind of get an early idea of kind of what life is like in kind of completely different place, right? And really outside of the U.S. I think that there's still a lot of perspective to be gained to go travel to Texas or to go travel to California.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you've probably come in contact with some folks here that are 50, 60 years old that have never left the state of North Carolina.
No, haven't even been to the beach.
Yeah. Haven't left Wake County.
There's something crazy about traveling domestically, and there's something I think even, more to say about traveling internationally.
And would you live alone, like when you're in Europe and stuff? And how did you deal with the business side of like being a professional athlete? Because I know you had some issues with visas and getting paid sometimes too. Like I was reading about that. I was like, what's going on here?
So on several occasions in Poland, we would be several weeks, sometimes months behind on our salaries. That was a difficult, as you can imagine, difficult situation. Visa situation also when I played for a Polish team, which ended up in a situation where we were actually taken off of a plane on the tarmac and detained at
the team, the whole team.
Oh no, just a couple of us.
Just a couple of you.
Just the Americans, yeah.
Oh, okay. And they got sorted pretty quickly, or
I mean,
not really.
Yes, relatively quickly, but when you're in that position, for me, it certainly wasn't quick enough.
No,
but yes,
scary.
It did. So there's a lot of crazy experiences, I guess you could say, in that regard. But still, were taught me a lot and allowed me to navigate difficult situations alone for the most part, you know, in a foreign country, in a place where you're really far from the support system that you really have known most of your life. And so I think that just kind of continues to create a high level of resiliency and
confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in Ukraine, you had to flee, I believe, during
absolutely back in 2014. Yeah, I think 3.5-4 weeks after we left, after the Americans left Ukraine, the airport that we flew out of and Donetsk was overtaken by rebels, and then 6, 7, 8 weeks later, that airport was destroyed. So yeah, still know a lot of people there in that area. I was in Mariupol,
really?
Which is also recently, as we all know, seen even more destruction. But even at that time, I think 20 or 30 people ended up getting killed in Mariupol, and now even much worse with the situation that we're currently dealing with. But sad time, and again, just another one of those situations that just really creates a completely different level of perspective. You know, when we think about what a bad situation looks like for us here. You know.
Yeah, perspective, totally.
Right.
Like we complain about the trivial things, like people are fighting for their lives.
Exactly.
Like we're worried about
Nothing.
minor things.
Traffic.
Yeah. I'm sitting at this red light. I was like, come on. Like, no.
Well, that's the benefit or beauty of travel, is that you do get to understand more about other people and how the world works and how you can fit into it.
Exactly.
You know, as a better human being, I hope.
Yeah.
I hope travel helps people come to that understanding.
I think so.
Yeah.
From the basketball side of things, like the difference in the Europe game to the US, like I just see it at the Olympics, I guess, and stuff like that. So is it a lot different to fit into?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think there's just the style of play, right? Like here in the US, I think that we're becoming, these NBA players are incredibly skilled. So this is not to say that we're not skilled, but I think that we're starting to see a transition from a game that relies more heavily on our athleticism to a game that incorporates the athleticism and the skill, right? I think that kids now are starting to do incredible amounts of skill work that may not have been so important to us before. And the basketball folks out there might think I'm crazy, but that's fine. That's kind of how I see it. When I see how the younger players are developed in Europe, I just think that strategy and basketball IQ and skill are way more important to them than athleticism. And so they're working on those things a lot more than they are their athleticism. And I think that in the European game, you're also starting to see those kids start to train their athleticism now at a younger age to kind of rival the NBA or the American style of basketball, which I think is great, because the beauty of it now is I think that you're starting to see just a rise of the level of play on both sides. But typically, I think, right, you're going to see more highly skilled shooters and smarter basketball players in Europe. And again, right now, I think that we're going through a bit of a shift, but that's kind of how especially my early days in Europe, that's kind of how I felt about Europe, a game that was more heavily weighted towards our strategy, how we're going to move the ball, how we're going to create, open shots. And the U.S. growing up was really like, who's faster, stronger, taller, and again, there's strategy on both sides, but that's just kind of how I felt about it. So
did it feel more like teamwork over
it felt
in Europe?
a lot more like teamwork in Europe.
And that was the same in each country you played in?
Yes,
like, did that differ much? No,
not much. I think that was pretty much across the board.
Because you're moving around quite
a bit,
a lot, and you're not at one place for very long, so it was hard to like gel with your team and
a little bit. And I think that that's kind of that's more about professional sports more than anything. I think because some guys are on 2-year contracts, some guys are on 1-year contracts, some guys are just replacing a player for 3 weeks. One guy's in his first year, one guy's in his 10th year with 3 kids, and one guy's you know, and
very different.
Everybody's in a different spot. Everybody's there for different reasons. Everybody's got different motivations. Everybody, you know, this guy is trying to be the best player that he can be so that he can be a big time player. And this guy's at the end of his career and he's just trying to make 1 or 2 more years worth of money before he stops. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher
of pieces.
to get all these people on the same page.
Yeah.
Than when you got 10, 12, 17, 18, 19-year-olds who've all been dying to go to the school who run through a brick wall together just because Coach said so. You know?
It's
a very different dynamic. You know?
Yeah. Totally.
It would have taught you a lot about, you know, relationships and managing, getting along with different people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we think about this idea of teamwork, right? Which is like such a broad term, but then when you think about that, it's like that teamwork looks a lot different, right? And how to navigate that teamwork versus the teamwork you navigated at college, you know? And so being able to, you know, relate to different people and get people on the same page and communicate with different people from different countries and different languages and all the things, right? So there's a lot kind of going on that's way more than just basketball.
And did you have a lot of the teams that you played on, were they speaking English or was there a complete language barrier there?
Most teams were speaking English. In the Ukraine, we had more guys on our team that did not speak English than anywhere.
It's a different dynamic then?
A little bit of a different dynamic, but most places, you know, in Europe, kids are growing up learning, obviously, their national language, they're learning English, and they're taking another language.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And so most of the younger guys, you know, my age for sure and younger, were already kind of learning English as a required language before they chose another language that they also had to learn. And so then you also think about basketball and sports and kind of how that opens up the world to international competitions, the Olympics and things like this. And so the idea of like being coached in English was something that was kind of normal. However, each individual on your team has a different story, right? And some guys may be more or less proficient in English. And so there definitely was a lot of local languages going on with some English, and, you know, that balance changed depending on where I was.
Did you play against any Australian basketballers in Europe or in your career? Or when I say Australian basketballers,
one, actually.
Anyone come to mind?
I played with one, Daniel Kickert.
Daniel Kicker. Okay.
Yep. And he played his college basketball at St. Mary's.
Oh, that's typical.
Right.
That's in
Good. Right.
California,
right.
correct?
That's the big There's a lot of Australians.
Yeah, there is. There is.
We played together in Ukraine, actually. And I know he's played for their national team a couple times. And, he was a great teammate, great guy.
Yeah.
So, that was one that I played with. And I know that I played against some, too, but I can't.
Yeah, I'm sure. Through the years. I guess
there's
just trying to
a lot of names there, I'm sure.
Through the college scene. But there's a few in the pros. Or over the years, there's been, I guess, the most famous, probably Luke Longley from the Bulls.
Yeah,
Aussie.
I mean, Patty Mills is making
Patty Mills. Yeah,
right
totally.
Well.
I mean, just Bulls, because he was on that Bulls team, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, growing up as a kid, you know, I was watching the tapes and stuff. But Ben Simmons.
Yeah, but he's... I don't know if you guys claim him as Australian or not, but
I don't know his full story. I think he born in Australia. He went to college at LSU, and I don't know. Even Kyrie was born in Australia, I believe.
True.
So
that's right.
He can come and play for Australia if he wants. We need some help.
The key is will they actually play? You know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I always hate getting asked this question. It's impossible to answer, but people always ask, what's your favorite country? But can you maybe not answer that question, but is there a moment or an experience that has really impacted you or stood out from a travel perspective, like in Europe?
Yeah. Ooh, not in Europe.
Or no, you can go wherever.
Costa Rica.
Okay. Yeah.
So I spent a week in the jungle in Costa Rica living in a treehouse.
Oh, wow.
And that was probably one of the most transformative experiences ever in my life. Yeah.
What was it about it?
Even in this studio here, and when we walk outside, we see so much metal. We see so much concrete. We see so many cars. We just see electricity everywhere. Even right now, right? Like all this electricity around us, and like how often are we really like in a place that is just so pure and untouched? and back to Mother Earth, right? And so like there was just such a powerful energy about being there and eating food that was grown there, and it was pretty intense, and your entire day is just your existence, right? Like your hour-long hike down to base camp just to eat. You're swimming in the river for your relaxation and enjoyment of the day. You're walking through, the where the food's getting grown, and you got goats and chickens and everything around, and right, like these are the eggs that you're eating tomorrow morning, and this is how your cheese is getting made right here with these goats, and this is the lettuce that's in your salad later on this afternoon. And there was just something about being there with monkeys hanging out on your front porch and snakes everywhere, and going down to go to laying down to go to sleep and looking up at the ceiling, and I mean every type of bug you can imagine hanging out up there. And it's just I think that's really, that felt so natural, right? Like here we are back in our natural state of being. Yeah. And
how many people were you with?
I was with two other people. I was with my mom and a very dear friend of mine from high school. And there was other people that were saying kind of in this is like a 700-800 acre kind of area that this couple, I can't remember exactly where they're from, but they just started buying this up, over the last 20 years, and they've created this beautiful oasis there that I think is just wonderful. And I've built some tree houses there, and allow people to come and rent these tree houses out and kind of experience this type of life. Awesome. Yeah, just incredible experience.
It's hard to come back from that, because I know we've experienced that a lot, and once you kind of see that, it's very difficult. I remember we travelled around Australia for 18 months. A lot of that time was spent in the outback with, none of the buildings and all of that around. I remember coming back to Sydney not long after, and in one of the busiest train stations in Sydney, and I was so overwhelmed by the movement, the people, the lights. I almost went and sat in the corner and covered
the
myself
noises.
up. It was too much to take after being so long without it. What's something that you do now that you are back in this busy, chaotic life to try and reconnect to that kind of sense of stillness and power that comes from nature?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I have not done a good job of finding those
it's
things.
Hard.
It's hard to disconnect. We're constantly connected, and
and like even when you go to the beach here,
find some space.
You're still like still a million people there, and there's still like beach restaurants everywhere, and it's not the beach that I experienced in Costa Rica, right? And so like just trying to find those moments and really got to kind of carve out your own space in the midst of all this, right? And so I think that meditation will continue to be a big part of kind of keeping myself centered and grounded and kind of still, especially in the midst of all the things that we have going on around us. But I think maybe the mountains is probably the best place for me to try to find some time and space to just kind of get into the woods and.
Yeah, we love, we grew up on Australia on the beach. Like, we love the ocean, the energy from the waves and the water and stuff, but we've come to love the mountains and the lakes in North Carolina too, just a different energy and stillness and the trees. Yeah. Like our backyard is like a wooded forest, and we love it. It's one thing we love about living in Raleigh, all the greenery and the trees and stuff. And it is hard to get disconnected from, your devices, other humans, and people just don't like sitting with themselves. Other humans. People find it difficult to be alone and sit with their thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
I learned how to better do that, in those 11 years I spent living alone.
Of course.
Because you can't.
A lot of time to myself.
Yeah.
You can't stop your thoughts, obviously, but you can slow them down and control them.
Watch them.
You watch them. Yeah. It takes time. It's practice, like everything.
Yeah. And you've mentioned meditation a couple of times. I'm a major fan. I've meditated almost daily for 10 years now. So I totally understand what you're saying about centering you and grounding you and helping you watch your thoughts. A lot of people are so resistant to it though, and it's like this is like something can really change your life. How did you get into meditation, and is there a piece of advice that you can offer someone who is at that point where, well, I've tried it and it doesn't work and it drives me crazy, and
or I don't have an hour in my day, and you don't need an hour.
You don't need an hour. You definitely need an hour. I mean, I guess the one thing I would say is, to your point, you don't need that much time. Start with 2 minutes. Start with a minute. Start with a minute. Just see how you feel for a minute. And also, to your point, it takes practice. You're not going to, it's not something that you get good at anyway. It's like
never.
You just
there's not a a tournament like meditation tournament.
Exactly. So I would just start with a minute, and I would just start with your breath. Just follow your breath for 1 minute. And I think that alone slows you down enough to just like, all right, take a deep breath. Like 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, and just think about breathing in and breathing out for 1 minute. I mean, I think that even that would probably calm a lot of people down right now.
Yes.
And then you can start to get into whatever else you want to get into. You want to start visualizing things and all this other stuff. But like, start with a minute. And try your best to be consistent. And also don't think about it as something that's like, I don't know. I mean, even me saying this right now is talking to myself more than talking to everybody else out there, like even a reminder to myself, like even a minute throughout your day here and there, it's just being still and being calm, being quiet.
You can even do it stuck in a car in traffic at the lights or standing in line at the grocery store.
100%.
But I was one who was a resistor as well, and I don't do a good job of being consistent about it, but I like the method like that they teach the Navy SEALs, like the box breathing, like in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Apparently they use that at high times of stress. And it's like you said, just listen to your breath. Just start there and let the thoughts come and go.
And think about the alternative, right? Like, what's the alternative? You're like super stressed out. You're screaming at your kids. You're screaming at people in the car. You keep doing that?
Yeah, that's right.
Or is it really that hard to try to do something different?
To reclaim and find your power again. It really is the easiest, simplest way that you can do it.
I think so.
Get present, breathe deep,
right?
Find your center, and then you can go on and move about in a calm way. And I can tell from your energy that you meditate because you have a very Zen-like energy about you. So
you do.
I just want to throw that in there. Like, it's very obvious to me.
I'll just back to the travel side of things, considering we have a travel site. You shared a good tip with us. So people are going to Paris because we want to go to Paris in the fall. And one of the things we're excited about living in Raleigh in North America is direct flights to Paris. But you shared your strategy. Like,
again, everybody's different.
But we like options.
For me, I'd rather take that road up to DC. Take the bigger Air France plane to Paris, get a little more comfortable. This smaller plane from Raleigh, that Delta plane is a little tight for me.
Because you're what, 6'4", 6'4.5"? Okay. Yeah.
But I'm also just super sensitive to my space too, so I just want to be comfortable on that flight. And you talked about it, right? Like when you get there, then you're like super tired, you've been uncomfortable for the last 8 hours, and now that starts to drag into the first day that you're there. And so I try my best to get as comfortable as I can. And I was not so smart, and a few years ago started paying quite a bit extra to fly business class, but just the way that you feel when you get there completely changes your experience.
It does,
I mean, even from your experience in the airport, you don't always feel like a sheep getting herded through lines and things like that. You get to sit in the lounge and relax a little bit, and boarding through a different door, you don't even see the mass herds of people. However, financially that starts to take its toll. You start across the country.
I know. We've been fortunate enough to do a few business class flights from Sydney to the US, actually, and it's very difficult to go back to economy. And I'm only 5'10". I'm 5'10", and I don't like economy. So
that's like 14.
From 15. Sydney to Dallas, we've done business on that. That was
16
hours. Yeah,
it's brutal.
Yeah.
Don't recommend. Oh, business class is fine. But economy, a nightmare. Horrible.
Yeah. Really lucky. But anyway, so you're back in the US now. And so tell us about life for you now and where it's going and how you've used all of these experiences and things that you've learned to step into this new chapter of your life.
We talked about it a little bit earlier before we started recording, but I came back to the U.S. in June of 2021. So still hasn't been a year yet. I officially decided to retire in August. And that's when I moved back here to North Carolina. When I first got back, I was in Washington, D.C. With my girlfriend, who is a critical care nurse. And so she was on assignment at a hospital in Washington, D.C. for 3 months. And so we spent the summer in D.C., which was great considering I'm originally from the area. So I got to kind of be home for a little bit as well. Then we moved down here in August when I decided to retire, and then just kind of went out trying to figure out what was going to be next, which was a scary time. Still is a scary time, to be quite honest with you. After being a basketball player for 30 years of my 35 years of existence, and then, making a transition at this point in my life, is still to this day kind of super scary, but was very, very lucky and feel super fortunate to have landed with an incredible group, Medalist Capital, and I work out of our Raleigh office. We have offices in Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, and Charleston, excuse me. Actually just got back from the Charleston office. And we are a real estate financial services company. We focus in the commercial real estate space. We're typical, I don't want to say typical, but we're mortgage bankers. We're helping folks finance their commercial real estate projects. We've also just started an investment sales arm. So kind of part of my runway was, getting my North Carolina broker's license, which I did a couple months ago. And so, we're going to start our brokerage side of the business as well. But we have typically really just been focused on placing debt, placing equity in commercial real estate projects.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's your role specifically at the moment? And for the listeners out there that don't know, what degree did you do at UNC, and does it have anything to do with what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I studied communications, interpersonal communications at the University of North Carolina. Typically, you'd see somebody come with a econ, finance, MBA that would come out of school and go into a job like this. So while I lacked that background in an industry like financial services and real estate, it is very much a relationship business. There's a lot of times where you need to be out in front of clients, out in front of different lenders, and I think that there is certainly with everything, right? There's it's very important to be able to communicate, to be able to connect with people, to be able to create and nurture relationships. And so that's something that I think I have a lot of experience with, and a lot of different areas dealing with a lot of different types of people. And so currently I'm in a business development role, kind of just helping to drum up new business, to connect some dots, while I learn as much as I can about the industry and learn from our new investment sales team that we just started, and continue to learn from, some of our debt originators that we've had working in the business for 25, 30 years. So back in school, for lack of, better words, honestly, like I'm kind of back in school learning on the job, while continuing to move and shake and try to connect our group with some folks that may need help financing their real estate needs.
Awesome. So you moving around from the different locations, or like you mentioned in the Raleigh office?
Moving around quite a bit. I spend the vast majority of my time on the highway between Raleigh and Charlotte. There just seems to be a lot more overlap in our offices. But, we spoke about this a little bit too. The Southeast is just booming with growth right now. You've seen a lot of companies that are making transitions and bringing their headquarters here and bringing parts of their operations here to the Southeast. COVID, I think, really changed the way that people thought about living in super dense markets like LA and New York and Chicago when they're thinking about our quality of life here in North Carolina and other places here in the Southeast. And so we're definitely seeing a lot of action here. But, last year our group helped originate loans in 21 different states. And so, we've followed our clients, wherever they go for their specific projects. But we do see the vast majority of our business here in the Southeast. So.
Any projects that people would be familiar with in the Triangle area, like upcoming or past that they've?
Yeah, there's a ton of things that we've kind of had our hands on in this area. Not sure exactly what I can point my finger at right now. I know, for example, at the University of North Carolina, a place that I actually stayed as a freshman in high school, freshman in college. Granville Towers was a dormitory that we stayed at, and I know that our company has helped the university finance that project. And Top of the Hill.
Very familiar with the Top of the Hill.
Yeah, we financed Top of the Hill, I think, a couple of times.
Awesome.
And a lot of stuff here in Raleigh that honestly it's crazy. I just got here and I can't even tell you about all the things.
That's fine, man. It's all good. It's all
part
good.
of over the last 20 years that they've been operating, but certainly a lot of things here, a lot of retail centers that most people just drive by not thinking about who owns it and where they got their mortgage from and all those things. So it makes me think about things a lot differently now.
Yeah.
And what's we spoke about this before we jumped on, and Craig and I are experienced in this dealing with reverse culture shock. So that's when you've been away from your home for a very long time, traveled, lived in other countries, and then come back, and then you're like, whoa, this is really, it's difficult. So what's maybe one of the biggest challenges you've experienced coming back and readjusting?
Yeah.
And what's one thing that's really helped you to manage or navigate through it? If you have one. I used to cry a lot.
Basically, what she's saying is what annoys you about living in the US now, and
that's
things that you did not miss, and things that you
heard it. One of the things is the amount of time that we spend in our cars. I think that it is absolutely ridiculous.
I complain about that all the time.
So
the driving culture of the US.
Yeah, life in France and any of the places that I played, really, I walked mostly everywhere. I could do everything within walking distance. Maybe I'd get in my car to drive to practice 7, 8, 9 minutes one way, and okay, so I spent 20 minutes in my car today, or maybe the 5-minute drive to the doctor, one day a month or whatever. But everything else was on foot, and everything else was close by, and you get to interact with people in your neighborhood all the time, and now you're like in the car for 30 minutes one way, and that's like super normal, and then you get in the car for another 20 minutes the other way to do something else, and another 30 minutes to get back home, and next thing you know, you've been in the car for 3.5 hours.
So true.
Just in your little cocoon,
this little bubble.
Yeah.
No,
around. Speaking of driving, around a bunch of other people who don't know how to drive.
DC is known to be pretty brutal for traffic and driving, aren't they?
Unbelievable. Now, I do like that. I learned a little bit of aggressive maneuvering in DC, just to get you through some tough situations. But it's just, that is that's stress right there. Sitting in your car, and that'll drive anybody crazy.
Yeah.
So that's probably the thing that stands out the most. I also think that, getting back to being able to walk and interact with your community a little bit more, right? Like when I was in France, I went to the same place to get my bread on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I went to the same place to get my fruits and vegetables. That's another 2-minute walk. So every day I go to the same guy to get my fruits and vegetables. I go to the same coffee shop. That's a 5-minute walk. I go to the same 8 or 9 restaurants that are right around my house, and so you get to really interact with these people all the time, right? Like if I want to go to my favorite restaurant right now, I'm going to drive 40 minutes to get there, right? Like I can't do that every day. And, and so this idea of community and connection. It just makes it a lot tougher, right? Like you have to put a lot more energy and a lot more effort, I feel like, to really connect and be together with the people around you.
I agree. I think it's really hard to explain that to people who haven't experienced that. But we lived in London and Dublin and never owned a car. Everything was just walking. As you said, we walked everywhere or got the tube. And I think it's that idea of the journey becomes the experience, like the thing that you love, because you're out walking, but you're getting to see life around you and the diversity of people moving around here and there. And then people will stop and say, oh, do you need help? Or you'll just engage with someone on the tube. That doesn't happen often in London, but sometimes. But it's that whole idea of just this experiencing life around you. Plus, it's so good for you mentally and physically just to walk everywhere and not be stuck in your car.
Outside.
Totally. Moving the body. Actually, everyone on the tube was like this, on their phones the whole time.
They used to don't have that misery face anymore.
No, I don't know if you've been to London, but yeah, the underground, like the subway in New York. But yeah,
I just love being out in life like that, walking around, getting around.
Yeah, even though London has an awesome public transport system, we were walking 20,000 steps a day.
You know, and like both of you just touched on that too, right? And okay, if you're not going to drive and if you're not going to walk, what's public transport look like?
Yeah.
And everywhere outside of the U.S., it looks
great.
Efficient.
So good. Exactly. Right. And so, like, what are we doing?
It's so surprising because America seems to be so ahead of many things.
Right. Seems to be.
Yeah.
There's that reverse culture shock coming back.
A deeper look at things.
Every now and then you got to.
Far ahead of.
Every now and then you got to step outside the borders and see a new perspective. The beauty of travel experiences.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It is.
But yeah, no, that's awesome. And one thing that you enjoy being back? Sorry.
Just being close to, so many people and so many things that I've been so far away from. So being able to be here close with my family and friends and not being 4,000 miles away from my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And, being able to go to a Carolina basketball game throughout the whole season and things that I just couldn't physically, experience. So those are things that are great. And, being able to see my niece and nephew on Christmas, right? Like this past year was the first time that I'd ever seen my niece and nephew. I mean, that's 7 and 11, right?
Yeah,
I'd
right.
never met them on Christmas.
Awesome.
Oh, what a great experience.
And so, having that experience for the first time and, things like that.
Cool.
Watching the Canes play.
Yeah, totally.
Things that you just literally could not do before. And so, I mean, there's so many great things about being back. There's no question about it. But it's those times of transition are always tough. And just trying to work through that as best as I can.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want someone to rant to, we totally understand it. We get the experience. We get how hard it is. It really is tough.
Just a couple more UNC questions, if you have time. We okay for time? No, we've been talking for a while, and then a few easier questions. So the Carolina family, we hear a lot about like that. Is that just like the athletic department, or is it the academic? Is it the whole school? When you hear the Carolina family, what does that mean? And
I mean, for me, it's really the whole school, and not even people who went to school there, but I think that the people who are avid supporters of the university, not just the athletic department, I feel like we're all kind of cut from a very similar cloth. And it's actually a big reason why I went to work at Medalist Capital. I mean, we have a lot of Carolina blue blood flowing through our company, and I think that for Carolina graduates and again, just Carolina supporters, I think that there's an understanding that the University of North Carolina has a very high standard of character and integrity and doing things the right way and providing a quality academic experience, and then obviously coupling that with a phenomenal athletic department who has seen incredible success across all sports and who's helped shape and mold young men and women to become great athletes and great people. I mean, just think about all the, not because they're famous, but this is why we know them, but just all the incredible talent that has been produced from this university across the board. You want to talk about researchers and doctors and authors and actors and athletes, and I mean, throughout every different kind of spectrum, point of the spectrum, there's just phenomenal examples of what this university can do to a young mind. And then when you talk about athletics and specifically the basketball program, I mean, we're very, very, very connected and very, very close. I hate to like throw this out there, but like it's a real thing. And I think that more and more people are, starting to learn about it. But like, I mean, I'm in a group chat on my phone with guys that played 30 years ago and guys that just finished last year, So you want to talk about Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, Tyler Hansbrough, Danny Green, Wayne Ellington, the Phil Fords. I mean, we're all in a group chat together. We all keep up with each other. We all try to support each other.
That's great.
We just had a big reunion a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I
Coach
saw
Williams,
that. Yeah, awesome.
Got his name put on the court. And, you got hundreds and hundreds of former lettermen, managers. I mean, it's not just the players, right? People who worked in the office during those years, and like we're all coming back to get together and connect again. And so, we support each other. We support each other in so many different ways. Whether that's, in school, on the court, in business, off the court, in our lives. A lot of these people are still phenomenal friends of mine, right? And like the Tyler Hansbroughs, the Bobby Frasers, the Wes Millers, the Dewey Burks, the Eric Hoots, who's been on staff for almost 20 years now. Like, I mean, these are people that I was in school and connected with while I was in school, but are still some of my best friends in the world right now. And so, these relationships mean everything to me and everybody else in this Carolina family.
Yeah, love it. Like, even though you've retired and I'm sure you miss the physical competition and stuff, what a network to stay connected with and to help you with all aspects of life.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a real family. I mean, that other school likes to talk about their brotherhood, but they're just staying for 1 year now and they're moving on, so but we won't get into that too much. Any Duke fans out there, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, don't get too offended. I've got to get a little dig in there. Yeah. I'm actually just a few questions about that. But you, Danny Green was your roommate, correct? Yeah. Was that just for 1 year, like your freshman year, or through your whole college experience?
The very first day that we spent on campus together, we were roommates at Granville Towers. And then we were roommates in the dorm. Our freshman year, then our sophomore year, we were suite mates. So we have 4 bedrooms in like a little apartment. Myself, Tyler Hansbrough, Danny Green, and Bobby Fraser. So
what a crew!
Suite mates. Then we moved into a house together the following year. Lived in a house together for 2 years, and so. We were kind of
awesome.
It must have been hard at some stages, though, was it? Because you were playing together, living together.
No, it was great.
No,
I mean, I think it was perfect for us, just because